With Uncharted 2, we really wanted to not only tell a really compelling story with interesting characters, but we wanted to just put you in these over-the-top cinematic set-piece moments that feel ripped straight out of a summer blockbuster movie. That lets you have control over Drake as you're having to play through those set pieces. So we wanted to just give all the technology we could to the engine to allow us to create these moments.
What the hell are they doing?
On PlayStation 3, for our first game, we were using probably only 30% of the power of the cell, and this time we're like getting close to 100% of like using all the power of the PS3, and how can we use it just to make the game look just beautiful and have better gameplay and just more everything over the top and all that stuff.
Uncharted 1, when it was a hard project because we had a lot of new IP, new team, new system, new engine, new everything. I would always say Uncharted 1 was like doing brain surgery with a chainsaw. In Uncharted 2, it's a totally different beast. We have precision instruments now that freed up a lot of time for the production, and that was huge because that gave us the time to do more creating rather than R&Ding.
In Uncharted 2, we integrated use of the Havoc physics engine, as opposed to a proprietary physics engine we wrote for last game. We're able to do a lot more things we couldn't do last game. We can have light fixtures hanging up the ceiling that are dynamically reacting to events that are going on around you. We have destructible cover all over the place. What we want to do is blur the line between the pre-computed physics stuff that we pre-process in our 3D software and the stuff that's happening live in the game. It's dynamically reacting to explosions and gunfire. And our goal is to have those two things coexisting without ever betraying what's going on behind the scenes.
The biggest thing I think that we want to do from Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2 was really to just push the characters to just another level of believability. We decided to just add a lot more polygons into the model and really redo the entire face rig to kind of get those secondary motions of the face, like the subtle details of like the muscles moving good. And we use like so much of the power of the PS3. I mean, we're literally creating characters that are just like film. It's pretty amazing.
He can't know about us.
We often talk about moments in the development of Uncharted, but they're these iconic images packed with drama and a spirit of adventure, and so the train was definitely one of these.
We wanted a technology that will let us place Drake on objects, be able to move those objects, break them apart, and still keep the player's gameplay intact the whole time. And we're calling them active cinematic experiences. You're fully in control of Drake while something big is happening.
Like staging a battle on the roof and inside of, and on the sides of a train that's speeding through the Himalayan countryside. That represented really major hills for us to climb in terms of technology, and then how we would develop the gameplay scenarios inside of those spaces and using those technologies. But they're so instrumental, they're so fundamental to the game that Uncharted 2 has become that we're very glad that we chose to do those things.
Oh, crap.
With the Uncharted franchise, we really are bringing a unique set of gameplay mechanics that no other game is providing. We're a third-person cover-based shooter, but we also have a hugely expansive traversal moveset. So we've got characteristics of a platform game, and then we've got great hand-to-hand melee combat, so it's all seamlessly fluid, and Drake just really feels like a fully realized human being, and anything that you think you could do, Drake can do.
So in Uncharted 2, we had three pillars of gameplay. We had traversal, we had gunplay, and we had hand-to-hand combat. And we set up scenarios, and we changed the animations. We did all these things that would enable you to kind of seamlessly go to any of those things at any time. And so we really wanted to kind of give that really good cohesive feel to your entire experience. We could not have made Uncharted 2 without having made Uncharted 1. We had such a foundation, such a great base to start from, that we built everything on top of. And so our goals for Uncharted 2 were to just really expand even more. We're constantly having to find ways to optimize and to, like, how can we squeeze more in during the experience, and we have more than achieved that goal. We've definitely outdone ourselves on this game.
Oh God, be careful.
Holy shit.
We're gonna pack more explosions, more big budget, Hollywood blockbuster explosions, buildings collapsing. You know, we want to maximize people's time. You know, if they're gonna spend 12 to 15 hours in our game running through it, we're gonna make sure that every minute of that, there's something unexpected getting thrown at them, there's something falling down around them, and they're caught up in the middle of it.
The optimizations and enhancements that they've done to this engine from Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2 are mind-boggling, and we're using the PlayStation 3 hardware in a way that I'm not sure that anybody else really is, to have that visual experience be so right and so seamless that you get the effect of people not wanting to put the controller down.
We faced a huge number of challenges in making Uncharted 2 Among Thieves. One of the things that we did right at the beginning of the project was to write out kind of a list of the rules by which the Uncharted world operates. It's very much a game about exploration and discovery. It's kind of larger than life, and it has these characters in the world who are often eccentric or surprising.
Yeah, well, payback's a bitch.
We have challenges in all fronts. It's how do you create a grounded character in a grounded setting, trying to get the pacing right, not only in the story and the cutscenes, but in games, so they actually start playing the way that we're drawing them in the story. They need to look and react that way in the game as well.
When we set out to do the sequel, we just wanted to even do better at capturing that active cinematic experience, which is really, for us, capturing the charm and action and adventure and spirit of classic, you know, action adventure that we all love, and making it interactive, so that anything we could do to make that experience in the player's hands, we wanted to improve from the first game to the second. And I think that's why we get the effect of people not wanting to put the controller down. You know, they want to see what's going to happen next, and they're emotionally invested in what the characters are doing.
He's got a really unique character in Nathan Drake, so we really wanted to delve deeper into the character, figure out what makes him tick, and expand the cast of characters to allow him to have a lot of different individuals to play off.
Nate, this is Carl Schaefer.
How are you feeling?
I think within the video game landscape, he stands out. I mean, he's got a real relatable character. He's an everyman. He's fallible.
Nate.
No, Elena, I'm done. Now, come on, I'm through playing the hero.
We knew that we wanted to expand on his character, to explore flaws and conflicts without losing what we thought was at the heart of our story, which is humor and charm.
Yeah, good luck, pal. I mean, that's almost impossible to... Oh, you did it. Nice.
And, you know, there's even elements of romantic comedy, which I think is unusual in games.
If it makes you feel any better, my relationship with Flynn is strictly professional.
Really?
Mostly professional.
Oh.
True character is defined by the choices a human being makes under pressure. So that's what we try to do with Nate, is throw something at him that just pushes him enough, right, up against the wall, that forces him to kind of be cunning and skillful, and then thus become the hero in the story.
And that becomes sort of the core of the story, is seeing, you know, when people are put in a crisis, their real character comes out. And then how the people he surrounds himself with, his friends and his colleagues, react to the same crises, and what that says about his character. You know, we've got Sullivan and Elena, and a new character, Flynn, who's a longtime partner and associate of his, and Chloe Fraser, who's his sort of new romantic interest.
I'm sorry, do you have a plan to go along with that grenade?
Yes, I do.
And all these people sort of are satellites around him that reflect different aspects of his personality and pull him in different directions. and then we want to just see what happens when the shit hits the fan.
We can't just leave him here to die.
He is as good as dead already, and so are we if we don't go now.
Then go.
Yeah, nobody's stopping you.
Uncharted has always been grounded into reality, and we try to thread the fiction and reality. We try to push it as much as possible to the fantasy, but it's still believable. We've always wanted this very lush and colorful world. We want just vibrancy in all of our textures, detail. It's just all about detail, detail, detail. Some of us actually been to the Gompas in Nepal and Tibet, and we look at the location and the culture and how rich the architecture is, and just how they've developed their culture and the colors and the design. And sometimes reality is better than almost anything you can create.
The big picture and the details. You can't have one without the other. So we'll do a variety of different types of concept art. We'll start off with sort of the big production paintings that give you the breadth and scope of what the level's supposed to look like. And they'll do tons and tons and tons of pages of, you know, what do the pipes look like? What does this look like?
When we set out to figure out the stories, we know that we always want to base it on a real-life historical mystery. Our catalyst for this story was a real-life story about Marco Polo. He's one of the first Westerners to travel to China as a trader, as a merchant. And the mystery surrounding his return home was what we used as our launching point.
Marco Polo leaves China with 600 passengers and 14 ships loaded down with treasure from Kublai Khan. And he lands in Persia a year and a half later with only one ship left and only 18 passengers.
So somewhere out there are 13 ships loaded with the Emperor's treasure waiting to be found.
Yeah, and that is what your client is after.
And because we base a lot of our historical backstory on facts, you feel a lot more grounded. The Cintamani Stone gave us a nice artifact, something meaty with a real historical context for Drake to pursue. So here we have this artifact that somehow ties into Shangri-La, and that was another grounding for us.
A lot of people pay lip service to trying to tell a good story in a video game, but they don't really take the steps necessary to deliver on that promise. And our team really has embraced that challenge, and I think we're providing a level of character-driven plot that most games just aren't capable of doing. And we combine that with a really rich gameplay experience that weaves that narrative into the game as you're playing it, and it's just that whole package that we're bringing is what I'm most proud of.
But what is it they say? Fortune favors the bold. Right. Lucky me.
Find the remains of my expedition and you will have your proof. Tenzin will guide you.
One of the advantages of having actors who do both the voice and the physical performance on the stage is that you get this unique energy when actors interact with each other that you just don't get when you record everybody separately in a sound booth.
Hello. Oh! Whew. So much for foreplay.
We allow a certain degree of improvisation among the actors. You know, we have the script. They're never necessarily set in stone. If we come up with something better on the day of the shoot, or if one of our actors comes up with a funny ad-lib that works, you know, we use it. And if you record everything beforehand with completely different people, you'll never get that.
That was great. I love that. The actors and the director, the motion capture director, really kind of treat their sequences like miniature plays, and they block them as if, you know, they're performing in front of a live audience, you know, but because there is no real camera there. There's, you know, virtual cameras all over the place.
A girl can hit harder than that.
We work from an outline that we created at the beginning of the project. We flesh out the script and we work on the scenes as we go, and then when we get into the studio, we have a rehearsal day with the actors, we revise the material together, we get it up on its feet, and we block it as if we were shooting film. Then the next day we get together and shoot it for real with the full crew there and the mocap suits and everything. And even then we'll revise them on its feet. So it's a really different process than most video games use.
What is it?
We split the take.
We split the take 3 ways, then you and I disappear together.
There's been a lot of instances where you have studios who record the voices separately from the mocap, and the end result almost always looks, at best, looks like pantomime, and at worst, looks like people running around flailing their arms.
Let's not forget who walked out on who.
The nice thing about motion capture is, unlike a live action shoot, where, you know, if one person is okay in one take but the other person isn't, you're kind of having to choose between one or the other. I can choose anybody's take from any performance at any time so that we can always get the best possible result.
The reason we were actually trying to capture the audio on the stage is because that's basically when the actor's in the moment and they're giving their best performance, and it just feels a lot better than when we ADR it. Often that feels, you know, kind of canned.
You are the reporter who has been biting at my heels. You better pray that he is not bluffing.
When I really get involved is really on the day of mocap shooting. So I'm there on the stage as we're recording the scenes, shooting the scenes with the actors, and I'm listening for continuity between takes. I'm listening for the right emotional tone between the actors. I'm listening for noise. I'm listening for all kinds of pollution in the sound. And we do a bunch of takes.
I'm paying attention to it from the sort of the holistic overview of how the performance fits into the larger story, into the script as a whole. I'm listening for the writing, whether it's working, whether what's on the page is coming out on the stage.
I place the cameras where I think I'm going to get the best, most effective performances out of everybody, best establishing shots, best close-ups. And when the scene calls for it, especially in the more action-oriented scenes, we always try to add a bit of a handheld feel to the whole thing as well.
Once Josh has decided which takes and which masters and all the time codes of the motion capture that he's going to order, I'll stitch it together. He gives me the leeway to make the timing feel good. It feels energetic. Then I go through all of the takes that we've recorded on the stage, not just the ones that we've selected. I'll make my best cut out of all that dialogue.
Now, come on, I'm through playing the hero. Your adversary will not give up so easily. He will not stop until he possesses the thing he desires.
The actors give us such great material on the stage, and when we come in, we have to complete that performance and make these characters really alive and who they are. That usually starts off with looking at what the characters are touching and what prop manipulations and how they interact with each other, and then it goes all the way up to all the fine details of, you know, how their fingers and hands are held and what their faces, the expressions and tone and emotion of their face. It's not just the lip sync, it's the whole performance. It's what they're doing when they're not speaking as well. So when we get that performance into our computers and we can look at it from any direction, it's at that point we need to set up our camera rigs. We need to, decide where our shots are going to be from, what's going to be a close-up, what's going to be a wide or medium shot, what's going to have a wide angle or a long lens, So we get to start that once the performance is already in.
Yeah, we like to do a lighting study, what we call a lighting study, and look at the action, look at the location, understand the story point, really look at the subtle motion, the interaction of the characters, try to pick, some real, hero frames, some key points, some key frames in that story point, in those scenes, and really light those to really bring the action to life. We start to move lights around in real time in the game, so we can, grab a hold of the sunlight and move it around and see, oh yeah, that angle of lighting really works nice on the character, and it really brings out the right emotion, so we get the right angle, marry that with the right color. Now we've got a compelling shot developing.
My relationship with Flynn is strictly professional.
Really?
Mostly professional.
Oh. Often for the sounds in Uncharted 2, we will go out and actually do field recording. We've done that with a lot of the environment stuff. We also, record a whole lot of Foley as well. So because we have all the characters that we have to cover, and their movesets are really, you know, pretty extensive.
Well, since our goal is to make sure that this sort of cinematic experience that we're providing, both interactively and in terms of the pre-rendered cutscenes, is as seamless as possible, we wanted to make sure everything happened within the same rendering engine, which is our game rendering engine.
It's awesome. I mean, it's amazing because, you know, you can play the game, segue right into the cinematic, use the game engine to light these cinematics, bring them to life, and just make it really, really immersive, you know, using the game engine. Just one goes into the other and out, and so continuity is it's just there.
Because we have the same assets that you're looking at in-game and in the movie, we get that seamless cinematic experience. It's really, really unique.
I suppose I should have quit while I was ahead.
It's not just about the visceral thrill of what you're doing, it's about the emotional and the visceral thrill, and that's where having it be a character-driven story is so important.
And it's great fun for the player to experience, and I look forward to it. It's a lot of fun.
There's chocolate? You look for it. We hate management, we hate meetings, we don't like long emails.
If you see something in the game that you want to fix, don't ask permission, just go in there and make it awesome.
Yeah, people are asking us, like, what's your secret? Yeah, what are we all about?
It's always sort of a corny answer, but it's really the people. And, you know, we have really strict hiring practices. Every single discipline has a test that we give people, and we have a very thorough interview process as well. We really want to make sure that the people we're bringing in are going to work with the way we like to work, which is everybody's got to be very self-motivated, self-starters. We don't have very much management.
We say, like, we don't hire people so they can work for us, but we hire people so we can work with them.
We hired people because of their talent and their creativity, and we want people to just get in there and collaborate, because that's where the magic happens, really. I mean, when you've got a programmer working with an animator or a modeler working with a text artist, and they're sitting right next to each other and they're communicating on a daily basis. Like bureaucracy or
hierarchy, all that stuff. That's just like, this is not us. And we are like just trying to be as plain as we can in terms of our organization, try to be efficient, go to the point, and get it done. Just like we trust everyone just to be on top of what they have to do.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I think we're somewhat spoiled because, as we're saying, we have this amazing team, and we've got these people that we can trust, and they're going to do great work even if they have very minimal direction.
No.
And that's the kind of people that we want to bring into Naughty Dog. I mean, in the end, that environment can kind of be chaotic, but that's sort of what we all thrive in, and it's organized chaos, and sometimes not so organized chaos.
Yeah,
but in the end, I know we've got the team that can pull off those ideas and just make the game even better. So yeah, our team size is you know more than doubled in just the last probably 3 years, and you know we're still trying to maintain that small game company feel. We're trying to make sure that everybody feels like they've got a say in the production, and everybody's got a voice to be heard. I feel like every single day I come to work, I learn something. You know, I'm being pushed by my peers around me to, you know, keep up with the state of the art.
After shipping a game, we like tell people, you know what, just go ahead. I mean, just try things out. You have no direction whatsoever. You have 3 months. Do whatever you want to do.
Actually, a lot of the greatest ideas that ended up in the game of Uncharted 2 came out of that period of time, that first 3 months between Uncharted 1 and when we fully hit production of Uncharted 2. So yeah, that period of time of just being able to be creative without restriction, I think really helps the entire production process. We are very communicative with the game development community at large. We talk to other developers within Sony and even other friends in the industry, and just try to bounce ideas off them, see how they've got their studio set up.
If we know great guys who are making great games, and we're gonna ask them if they want to come by at our studio, and so they can check it out. We're like really open about what we do. We're trying to share it with other developers within Sony, outside Sony,
Now the teams are so big, the development process is so complicated.
The challenges are so different.
That just having the idea is only the first step, and you've still got 99 more steps before you're actually going to be able to implement that idea.
Evan comes from design, and he's still doing design work. I come from programming. I'm still doing programming work, and
so everybody from top to bottom works on the game. Actually has a task that they're producing work that's making the game better. Nobody's just managing a schedule or pushing papers. We want the decision to be in the hands of the people that are doing the work.
This is our first passion, and we don't want to lose that. I think we will probably lose some of the energy that we have if we can spend some time doing what's our first passion. Somehow it works, and cross our fingers. But yeah, it works. The biggest challenge we got when we started was like animation. I mean, everybody's been raving about our animations on the first one. We've been pushing the boundaries even further, like on Uncharted 2 Among Thieves. And we're like, okay, that's great, but how are we gonna make that work online? I remember I got really excited when I got on my monitor like 2 drakes running around. I called everyone in the office, say, hey guys, come on over. And like everybody like saw right away the potential. We were like, okay, that's huge. We spent a lot of time working on our technology to just bring animations across the network so that you can see the other players at the same quality you would see just like NPCs or enemies in the game.
Now we have all the fluid animations, all the climbing, all the jumping, all the special moves are all in the game, which is really awesome.
We really push the boundaries. We try new things nobody tried before.
Everything that we do in single player shows up in multiplayer.
You can see player movement as detailed as possible, like you will see them if they were like next to you. So when we started to work online, we also want to make sure the experience for the player would be just as simple as it is when you play single player. So you hit start, you start the game, you play.
I can very quickly jump online, hit our matchmaking system. There's no waiting around, there's no nothing. I'm pushing a button, I'm in the game. I'm finding people of like skill, so it's bouncing me up and down and putting me into the right level, so I know that every game I play is going to be fun. I'm going to be constantly challenged, but it's not going to be too hard.
Also, something that's very important is be able to play with your friends, and that's why we created our party system.
If I have a bunch of friends online, I can very easily invite them to join my party. I can see them in their party, jump in with them with one button press.
So that if you go and make a custom game, they're going to play that custom game with you. If you go in matchmaking, they're going to come and be in your team and follow you in your matchmaking. So that's key, because a lot of people want to play with their friends too. It's super important, like to be able just to chat with your friends and make fun of them sometimes if they die and stuff like that. We made it like really extremely easy. So I'm sure people are gonna use that feature a lot.
In the cinema mode, we record the games that you've played, so you can go back and watch games that you've played before and see what exactly you did the last game you played.
We save your games when you play them. You can replay them. Just fast forward, pause the game, stop, freeze everything, move the camera around, and just look at what's going on, where everybody is, and you can take screenshots, and so that you can then show off to your friends. And also, you can use it to see how other players are playing. So, like, if a guy was really good in the other team or in your team, you can just replay the file and just follow him and see how he did it. What was his tactic just to be so good? What is he doing? Because everybody has a unique technique.
Even if you're playing by yourself, you're gonna call your wife over, your kids, your friends in the house and say, look at this awesome thing that happened, and sort of gets more people involved. You can go through and sort of give yourself a best of reel, which is really, really neat.
The great thing about the PlayStation 3 that I love is the fact that there's a hard drive, and that's on every single machine, and that's like priceless for us. So cinema mode was very easy because we can save your cinema files to your hard drive very easily, and also we're having some technology using the cloud where we can save the files, your cinema files, to the cloud, so that when you want to share it with your friends will be able just to get it from the cloud and download it to their own PS3, to their hard drive.
Ultimately, statistics are sort of the rawest form the game takes. So as a designer and as a player, it's important that we're able to see those things so we know where the game is unbalanced. I would never be able to make the game fair if I couldn't tell what the statistics were for any given map in any given mode.
We had to be creative because PSN is free, and I love that. It's the fact like people can just play online games for free at any time, and that's huge. And it's good because it forced us just to find new ways to store that data, and that's why we started to work on the cloud technology.
Things that I thought were cool maybe didn't work. Maybe there was too many deaths there. Maybe maybe nobody ever went there. Those kind of things were very, very easy for me to see because we did track so many statistics all the way along.
The stats are like the biggest thing for the players. They want like to know how they're doing. We have competitions going on, and they want to be able just to go on the website and just look at the results of the game and check the result of the game and be able just to define who's winning the tournament.
One of the best features of Uncharted 2 is the ability for us to live update the game, which means we don't have to patch. It's completely transparent to the player.
Every time you start the game, you go on multiplayer here at the bottom. You're gonna connect to our servers, and you're gonna sync the latest data. And it's completely transparent. It takes no time, so that if we see there's a big advantage point on the map that we need to fix, we can do that. We can do that without people knowing about it, and it's good because it makes the experience better for everyone. The game has to be fair, and that's very important.
If we want to update models in the game, it's very, very easy for us to do that. If we want to update game modes, or even just tweaking numbers having to do with the explosive damage, let's say, or the damage of the guns, if we find that something's overpowered or in the wrong place even, we can update all those things.
We want to be able just to keep pushing new things to the players even after we ship, and that was a big part of our technology too. And we're using the cloud for that too, where we store all our files just that you need to update on the cloud. And again, it's all free and it's all good.
For Uncharted 2, we had a little bit more time, and so we could really, really attack the hardware this time around. We saw a huge target in helping out the graphics chip by offloading some of the work to the SPUs. And when we started doing that, we realized that the SPUs are really, really good at doing this kind of work. We added more functionality to it so that it all could be done on the SPUs and really, really efficiently, and with much higher quality than before. Our characters, they typically have 80,000 polygons in one character, like the main character. In total, what we try to push through to the graphics chip is about 1.2 million triangles that we try to draw every frame. We do a lot using the cell processor. We make heavy use of assembly programming, which is really nitty-gritty programming.
Uncharted has animation blending as a core feature of our technology, a core feature of how our characters move, and it's incredibly unique to the way we're approaching the problem of producing a really high-quality animation.
We can have animations that range anywhere from just a couple of animations to up to 20, 30 animations at one time affecting a character, affecting them in various parts like hands, face, shoulders, back, and legs.
You don't have to have an animator animate every single possible combination of the player putting away his weapon while jumping or running and shooting or all these different things. Really, no animator can animate enough animations to produce the same look that we've been able to do by mixing and matching, by layering animations on top of each other, by blending between animations even on different layers. And that really gives the player a lot more control over what he wants to do that's not limited by our animators.
We added more functionality to it so that, for instance, the camera motion blur, it all could be done on the SPUs and really, really efficiently and with much higher quality than before. So we added lots of things on top of it, including bloom and downsampling, the focal blur, and The interesting thing about the focal blur is that we are actually being very accurate, so that when you fight with a character, we can focus on what's happening in close combat. Whereas when you aim at someone far away, we can focus on what's happening far away, and things that are near blur out. So it really guides your eye, maybe in the same way that your eyes focus on something in the distance or close. You know, now that we don't have to do the post effects using the graphics chip, that means that the graphics chip can do more, which means that we can render more polygons and have more interesting background. So all in all, it's a huge benefit for the graphics.
Oh, crap.
We really wanted to push the PS3, which we knew we could push even further from what we had done with the first game. And we went from 150 objects for the first game. This game, we're capable of over 500 objects in like just a couple of milliseconds.
And that has allowed us to make the world come to life, to really feel real, feel like you're not in this like frozen wasteland, but really that you're in a building that's being destroyed, that you're in a war zone with everything going on around you, that things are more real than they ever have been before.
And it shows, given the SPUs and just the harnessing the power of the PS3, we can now take it so much further. And Uncharted 2, we've really taken it the next step.
Because our game is very much an action movie, right? So you would expect to have it look sort of like a movie. It's still stylized, but movie-like. And so we made a filmic filter for the high dynamic range, so we could play much more with the light values. It looks much more believable, and also it sort of solves a lot of the shadowing problems that you sort of expect to see. So it really puts everything together in a sort of a cohesive way. Hard to do, but the benefits are huge because you can make real magic happen.
The thing that makes Uncharted a lot different from a lot of video games that even when they do mocap is we all prepare the same way we prepare for an episode of a television show or a feature film shoot. It's the same thing, you just happen to be wearing a ridiculous looking outfit.
The line blurs between gameplay and cinematics. Jump! And I've heard from gamers, you know, experienced gamers, how seamless it is. We were almost in that. You forget you're making a video game.
Shit! In school, when I was taking the martial arts classes, I remember telling my professor in grad school saying, "What? Come on, really? I mean, I know you want me to get that right hook right, but let's be honest, they're just not gonna cast me like that." And sure enough, I have to go back with my tail between my legs to my professor and say, "Thank you for making me know how to, like, look at a weapon and all these things, because I'm playing this action hero that I never thought I would play."
Lynn always had that little element of sarcastic humor, which I really enjoyed. I mean, there was those little moments when I pull out the guns and I'm like, all right, calm down, Gandhi. It's just, you know, this is those little bits of irreverence, which as you play the game, you'll find are kind of misleading in some ways, which are kind of fun, you know.
When you're working mocap, you only have your mocap suit. So whatever your shoes are, the way you're moving, you have no clothes to sort of help you. You've got no makeup. You've got this hat with a mic on the front. So there's a lot of imagination.
When we first got together the first day on the job, when we started working on the scenes, I just felt so comfortable. It was like I'd known this guy. I actually did work with him some years ago on another show, and it felt like the relationship that Sullivan and Drake have in this thing.
I just said, what's the one thing that you would say to your actors is a prerequisite for doing this job? And you said, to have fun. And I went home and I said to my husband, I want this gig, we're allowed to have fun on this one.
I
Our process is really different from anything that's done in any other video game, actually. And not only from our audition process through the way we rehearse and collaborate, the way we shoot and the way we work together for an entire year, it's what yields the result that everybody's been praising.
But whose idea was that to change the process?
It was Amy's idea.
Well, it was a collective idea.
Well, a collective idea.
Take the credit.
And basically-
There are 150 people back at the office right now slaving away.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yes.
But I remember a lunch when she called me because we had worked on some regular video games.
And even those weren't very regular.
But they were done in the style of record the voices and then you animate and you put out the game.
Even then we had people in together, though.
Yes, so we were getting theatrical already. And then at this lunch, she said, I'm having a thought about maybe you've worked in the theater and this is a game that's like this, and I'm thinking maybe kind of combining the two, and you've also worked for a camera video. So that you were pointing in that direction early on.
And the thing is what we're doing isn't that unusual for film or television, but it's really unusual for games. It's the fact that we're telling a character-driven story.
I suppose I should have quit while I was ahead.
That's why actually when we first started putting information and screenshots out about the game, we got a lot of people sort of poo-pooing it and saying, well, why do I want to play a guy in a t-shirt and jeans? Where's the aspirational fantasy in that? And it's like, well, just wait, because that's not the point. You don't have to be the Space Marine. You don't have to be the sword and sorcery guy. I mean, can't we aspire to more than that as creators? We don't have to be sort of lowest common denominator just because we're a game.
We had friends and family in town, and I started kind of showing them what I was working on.
Yeah.
But then, somebody picked up the controller, and he started playing it, and pretty soon, the entire family was sitting around watching him play this video game, and it's like, when does that ever happen? It wasn't because, I was in it or whatever. They were legitimately interested in
and
what
we get
was
that
going on.
over and over and over again. And I think the thing is, part of it's attributable to the genre, part of it's attributable to the quality of the game and the visuals. I mean, it's very beautiful to look at, but I think it's really comes from our process. And some of that was predetermined in saying, well, we're going to do this a certain way. We're going to work for a long time together. We're going to rehearse everything together. We're going to collaborate. We're going to revise together. We're going to improvise together. But that only works because you get the right group of people together to do that. It is difficult to do. It's expensive to do. It's time-consuming to do. And you can only do it if you're in LA, to be honest, to work together like we have for an entire year. And you don't get that in any other project in this industry right now. There's some sort of truism. I don't know what the actual quote is about casting being everything. And you said it?
I'm one of the many who said it.
That's where I heard it.
It's totally,
It's
where you live or die.
You totally live or die. I mean, and once you've cast well, you can almost just relax a little bit because people are just gonna take care of it. From there, it's gonna coast a little bit. Whereas if you've cast badly, I mean, as I'm sure you all know, it could be an absolute nightmare for a long time.
Well, the audition process really was unusual as far as I know from the game standpoint, because they're really more like theater auditions, and we were looking for actors with theater backgrounds and not just voices, and we did thorough screening of people, and they came from all over. And one of the actors was there to help us audition other actors and had callbacks, and I called her up and said, would you like to come in and read with the callbacks? And she said, sure. So she came back and read with the callbacks, and then we had a conference. I remember sitting in that the Sony building with our executive producer, I guess you know. And he looked at all of the auditions and said, I want her. And we said, which her? He said, the one who's doing the reading with the other actors. And that was Emily Rose.
Oh, man. But I auditioned originally and didn't get picked because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. So it took me a whole day of watching everyone else and reading across from other people to get the hang of it. So, normally when you come into auditions, you come in and say, hey, how are you? Stand on your mark, and maybe you sit in a chair and you have like kind of this, they're looking for this kind of chemistry or read between the two people. And it's very simple. But they came in and they, put a mic on you and just do whatever you want. And it's like 8:45 in the morning, and I just saw the material, and I'm like, I have no clue what they want. And so when they were like, yeah, we think we're going to go a different direction, I'm like, yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, I don't know.
See, when I went into audition, I read with Nolan. I didn't realize he was and he just kept improvising. He wasn't doing the lines back to me that were on the script. And I was getting so pissed off because he were like
going off page. And I'm like, I'm trying to audition and keep to the page. What are you doing?
Well, you had to know what you were getting in for.
Yeah, right? But it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, but sometimes that's the best, read you're going to get is somebody who's listening is really going to give you the thing, give you back something that's real. Yeah. So it's not just off the page. And you were one of the few people who actually did that. Do you remember? I mean, he actually played, and it was just.
That was the plan. So you
yeah.
see what happens when you.
Because we would do the first one as written, and then kind of just go off, and you were like one of the only people who kind of would laugh and go with it. And Claudia was the same way too.
Yeah, I dropped my pages.
This has to do with the fact that acting for mocaps or acting anywhere really has to do more than with reading off the page, and it has to do with that ephemeral word called chemistry. And we were looking for people who had chemistry. The two of them had the two of you. Everybody in this room had something that popped off the screen with the other actor, and that's a lot of what the game was about, and why I think that we're getting some real interesting performances that are happening.
I remember my first audition for the first Uncharted with Emily, and I remember there was that big open space. It looked like a ballet studio, and there was just a chair. And they're like, okay, and you have to get to Elena and jump. And I just remember running and jumping and diving and sliding behind that thing, like thinking I'm going to either make a complete ass of myself, or I'm going to get this.
Or both.
Or both, exactly. And I had no idea what I was in for.
Well, that's what was so challenging about the first audition for me, because when they asked me to come in and read across from people so that I could, I kind of learn how this whole process went, and I saw people coming in and rolling on the ground and enjoying it and being imaginative, I was like, oh, we're allowed to do that? Cool.
I think that's what's interesting about people that made the connection, because, when you think about mocap, it's just this wild kind of sci-fi type of future technology. You're surrounded by, millions of dollars worth of equipment, but when it really comes down to it, our job as actors is really just to make a connection and do the same thing that we've done in theater or film or TV, and just kind of listen and react and, play the given circumstances of the scene to move the story forward.
One of the other things that I look for and you look for is humor.
Yeah.
Even though it's adventure and action and all that, you've got to have a sense of humor, A, to be doing the right work in the game, and B, to be someone that it's fun to be around all day for a long day in a scratchy mocap suit.
Yeah. I think I heard that. I think my agent said to me, they're really looking at whether you'll be a good fit to work with people, and get along. So for me, it was nice to sort of think in those terms, that my audition was really about Nolan, and that I just needed to go in and play and have fun. And I sort of dropped my pages and just sort of went with it and whatever. But in a sense, I'm not saying I was being manipulative, but I knew that you were the one I needed to work.
That's true. That's true. And she was the only one who auditioned topless, which I thought was brilliant.
Coincidence?
Excuse me, I auditioned topless.
Maybe not.
Amy, when was the first test that we did before the first one was cast? There was a testing, it was like a year before or something.
Oh, that's right, because you were right.
That's when
we actually never even auditioned.
I never had to audition.
It was
yeah,
sort of a
I just
working
remember it.
audition.
So technically, you were the first one cast.
I was the first one cast, yeah. And Amy told me, she's like, we're not going to start out for a year, but you got the role. So there was the pressure was off. Yeah, whatever it was.
Were you topless too?
Yeah, bottomless.
This is my first experience with mocap doing Uncharted 2. And it takes a little bit of getting used to wearing this suit.
People don't know about mocap. You start everything with the T-pose, right?
Mark it. We're rolling.
I can't say enough about the experience. It's been a blast. I think the worst part of the whole process was the day that, and on the first Uncharted, where they brought me a brown mocap suit.
Can you please find that footage?
I wore a brown mocap suit. It looked like 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag is what it looked like. And it was just,
it was one size too small, too.
Yeah, one size too small. It just was like awful.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't so hard to imagine the sets, and we got things to handle, so we've got the props and everything. And because often when you film and television, it's the same thing. You only get half a set sometimes, or the suitcase isn't as heavy as it's supposed to be, or whatever.
But it was working in those suits and trying to think of yourself as not being dressed in a black tight suit covered in little balls, you know, with a cap on your head and the mic. To me, that was the hardest thing, you know, because wardrobe kind of makes an actor sometimes. You often talk about when you work as an actor, you find the shoes and the walk and the clothing of the actor and the makeup and all that. We don't have that. So we have to do the character, we have to imagine these clothes of the actor, of the character. That was the hardest part for me, actually.
Yeah, I'm a shoes girl. Whatever my character's shoes are, that really helps. And these are these sort of second-hand sweaty sneakers that hundreds and thousands of mocap actors have worn months beforehand. Sometimes the suits haven't been washed, so you sort of ignore the Febreze.
You know, there's nothing quite like the snugness, the comfort of a mocap suit. Sometimes on the weekends I put mine on, light a nice cigar, have a glass of scotch.
Well, I'd say the most frustrating part about it was losing all my balls.
Oh, there they go. First ball
as well
joke.
as,
First ball joke of the day.
Yeah, the first ball joke of the day. You know, as well as playing tens in, I was playing all these soldiers that were killed. I don't know how many I played in this game. 16, 17, I don't know.
What was his nickname? We came up, Robin Atkin Down. Say, Robin Atkin Down.
Yeah.
I think what I did enjoy, which is different to film and television, is in film and TV you do a master shot and you do a two shot, whereas a medium-sized shot, and then there's a close-up. And usually it's single camera, and you've got to do it over and over and over again. And what was freeing about this was we never had to worry about that, because you guys choose in the computer, right, when it's going to be a close-up and when it's going to be
much more like theater now.
a wide shot. Yeah, so that part I really liked, actually.
And I really love, like, there's been times where I haven't quite understood the layout of the world that I'm in, and just asking one of the technical operators, because the whole time we're mocapping, we can see ourselves on the screen. So I've been like, I'm not sure, or we don't know which way we need to move to get out of this room. Can you hover it to bird's eye view so that we can see this angle, and how long do we have to travel? And it's literally just at our fingertips right there, the entire world on screen. And we literally, I mean, there's endless jokes of us walking around and doing stuff because you can see it all on the screen in real time. I love that.
One thing that I think people aren't necessarily aware of is we don't actually capture the facial animation. We have 4 cameras on all of the actors as we shoot, so that we have that for reference, and we don't capture hands either. So when you see the raw mocap come back,
You don't get to be jealous.
the physical performance is there, but not the subtleties. And so all that facial animation, the subtlety of it, the little eye movements, that's a credit to our animators that have all that traditional training, who are kind of leveraging off of what you do on stage, but then giving it just that extra little exaggeration that brings the characters to life.
He can't know about us.
He's gonna be pissed.
In film, you get to see dailies every now and then. This is one of the very few games that I can think of. You guys actually bring in some of the animation that we've done, and they show us what they've already rendered. And it really gives you an idea of like, oh, so that's what it looks like.
But we get the scope of some of the buildings that we're supposed to be in, inside the temples and inside these areas where you suddenly realize that you're this big in this massive animation.
Yeah, that's
when you're in a small room, but then you realize you can focus, you can look at in these distant areas.
That's true, and also seeing it in real time. I mean, that was what blew me away the first time I worked on mocap. That not only am I working on this, blank stage, but I can look up on the wall. I can see myself in real time doing the scene, and they can basically put you anywhere.
There's a stalactite up there.
That's interesting. We should mention that not only do we have a director there, we have the writer-producer there.
The animator.
We have Josh.
Yeah.
Cher there doing the animation, and Taylor with the sound. And how many times during the shoot are the 4 of them, Gordon and Amy and Josh and Taylor, huddled? You get what you need, and then they go to their little corners, and we do something else, and then they come back together.
But I feel like in motion capture, it's almost like you have to use your imagination a little bit more. I mean, some of us have worked on sci-fi shows where you're dealing with green screen, but in this, when you're working mocap, you only have your mocap suit.
But it is hard in the suits.
Yeah.
It's hard in the suits,
No, go to
especially to
school.
do things like a love scene. We had to do.
Inserting a ball joke here, but I'm
No, please don't.
Too late.
But we had to do a scene that was apparently, from what I'd been told by you guys, a little bit more forward and physically more intimate, and went a little bit further than you'd done before.
Yeah.
But Josh had actually said to us, one of the animators said, don't actually kiss. I mean, you can if it helps in the scene, because that's what they're going to do at the scene's end. but you guys don't have to do it as performers because it looks really weird trying to animate kissing anyway. And
like that?
Nolan was making me laugh so much, and it's sort of, you've got the Velcro, and if you touch, you get stuck, and you've got to try and pull yourselves off each other. And
remember how you get this close, and the funny thing is they're supposed to be a really nice, passionate kiss. So her face is here, and we're laughing. She's this far away, and we're moving our heads like...
And we've got the option of kissing, but then they would call cut, and I go, and release. And we sort of never did it. And he's like, you're not going to do it, are you? You can't do it. I'm like, no, hey, they said we didn't have to.
Yeah, she didn't have to, so why bother? So
But I had to ask you at one point. I just said, can you just try and be sexy for 1 second? Trust me. Because the suits are pretty... They're not bringing sexy back, let's put it that way. And I actually had to say to Nolan at one point, could you just try and be sexy for 1 second? Just 1 second.
But that was that scene, or was that the other one where you...
Something else,
you get,
I'm sure, but...
There was one where she kisses me on the cheek, which she had no problem with. Animators didn't seem to have any problem. I think there needs to be more sexual content in the next one.
Well, I think we sort of freaked out some of the fans. Their brains almost exploded with that scene alone in the trailer of me seducing you in the hotel room.
I thought you'd want to be in on the action.
So what's the plan?
The interesting thing about, it goes back to like kids as actors, and is actually doing the physicality in the mocap suit. And you know, as an actor, the more that you can, it's like when they have a stunt double. You're like, no, let me do this part. It's not dangerous yet. You know, I can do this, and because you really can get that performance. And remember that one where I literally got to jump, and you were a little concerned about me doing that at first, but
well, we've hurt everybody once at least.
well, I don't care. I mean, but I mean but that's the fun part of this. I mean, that's my 8-year-old and his brother running around in the clubhouse, and you know.
But that goes back to the kind of collaborative, like, freedom that we have, because I even remember, I think, in that scene where, I think that's where the scooch line came in or something.
Yeah.
Like, he's jumping in and, you know, here's scooch over, and just being allowed to say those things.
Yeah, she said
is
scooch over, right? Scooch
Yeah.
over, and I went, scooch? Like, who says scooch?
And then it's like back in the action, and it's
Yeah.
just being allowed to do that and not have like 12 writers be like, but no, really.
You know what? But you know what? You know what was?
One writer doing that too.
Yeah.
There's the one thing that is difficult in the mocap was, and I don't know if you were actually doing the acting scenes in the other room, but every now and then they'll grab us, and everybody knows what I'm talking about.
That's when everybody
and we
gets
have
hurt.
to go do. That's when everyone gets hurt. You have to go do, like, for the game players. Okay, here's Drake wants to shoot on a 45-degree angle. We're running across, like, literally it's the size of a basketball court at a 45-degree angle, and then backwards, and then the side step, and then the 45-degree to the left, and we're running back and forth, and then jump down like this, and then come back up, and then go like this, and then come back up for like 20 minutes.
No, but
run down there and sprint to the floor.
is the propane. They decided in this game
Uncharted,
that they're
that's
going to
it.
bring in these propane tanks. So first day, we come on, it's like, okay, we're just going to throw a few propane tanks around. It's like, no, we're literally going to throw propane tanks.
Yeah.
So we're running up and down, you know, back and forth, 20 feet this way, 20 feet that way. Now we're throwing them. Somebody's got a
propane
pad.
tank.
I'm throwing like a huge propane tank up against a pad. Worried I'm going to knock Taylor over.
Yeah, and you remember what they said? It was like, well, they're empty, so they're lighter. It's like, it's a metal propane tank.
I had to.
And so when the player is playing those games and you hear Drake go,
It's real.
that was actually my spleen tearing.
I had to on the first game before we realized like what we're capable of and we're not capable of. I remember there was a block this big, a huge padded block, a meter-high block, and I remember that weekend I was flying to Seattle for my best friend's wedding, and but you know, I wanted to do the same thing. I'm like, no, just let me do it, man. I'll do that. I'll kick that block. And so we did it like a few times, and it's like from the ground, just jump on the block, just like grab the block, like jump down from the block, and you're just like, it's impact, impact, impact. I remember walking down the aisle for my best friend's wedding and my heels being like, Uncharted, smile, because I was like in so much pain.
Next time we're not going to let any of you do any of that.
Well,
It's
but
all-
the beauty of it is
Richard,
it's in the computer now,
He wrecked
so
his
you've got
leg.
it.
Richard, didn't you like twist an ankle or a knee?
That wasn't on the meter block, that was on Apple
knee.
Blocks, I think.
Yeah.
He twisted his knee doing all the in-game moves. But that's the cool thing. It's like rather than you know, a lot of those moves are it's us.
Well, the reality of us being able to do that, and it is. It's like when I play the game or I watch it, it's kind of crazy because you get to see yourself do it.
But you've got to be careful because the balls, I mean, it's captured very specifically. Do you know that scene where we're talking about the plan and we're sitting at the table and you guys played it back to me one day and I went, oh my God, they've got my legs the way that I must have been sitting on the day. Now Chloe's probably a bit more confident, a bit more butch, would have sat somewhere like this. But there's little old Claudia thinking that she's not being filmed from here, like a, you know, reading the news, they're not going to see what's below here. So my legs were sort of in this really dorky position, and now it's ended up in the game.
Yeah, but that gave a dimension to Chloe that you would not normally get, but it gave this little feminine side. I thought that was really, really cool.
Bigger muscle guys in here because they can't be in the room. The power, got the meat hooks coming left at you. You're watching the right, it's again left. The right is just like, could stay home. I was gonna look at that brown, low, like baseboard.
Okay, let's try to sneak up.
Of all the video games I've done, this is the only one where you come together just like a real theatrical production and spend the time like we're shooting a movie. We're doing a television show. And for me, the rehearsal day, it's just invaluable.
Well, I think why it's also essential, you know, being able to sit around the table and go through the storylines. We are not given a script beforehand, so in terms of doing our homework or knowing the order of the timeline, we don't have that already in our minds. So that rehearsal process is so essential to check in with Amy and say, okay, remind us what has happened right before, what's going on in the timeline. If we didn't have that to check in, it's not like in a TV series where it's like, okay, we've shot all of this, I understand everything that's happened before. It's so out of sequence. So it's very much in your imagination and in the dark that rehearsal time is essential for being accurate.
It's also great about the freedom we're allowed and have been from the beginning of playing with things and changing things during that process.
Yeah, I think, Amy, you really allow actors to get in there and give their contribution.
I remember one of the first scenes you and I had to do. I'm on a Jeep holding this massive weapon, and you guys had blocked out what you needed technically from the scene. And then you said you guys should have some kind of physical, not embrace necessarily, but some kind of thing that indicates, you know, it's some history. And I said to Nolan, don't you think it would be fun if I jumped into your arms from the top of the Jeep rather than going through the motions of getting down? I just feel like Chloe isn't going to waste any time. She's very physical. I really believe that this would be the choice that she would make.
Seems like I'm always saving your ass.
Well, it is an ass worth saving.
And so I think we showed it to the guys, and I said, are we able to do this? And there's the difficulty with the balls and jumping onto someone from a height. But you guys were able to accommodate because you saw the value in establishing their relationship and their history very quickly in that one move.
And it really kicked it off like that.
Yeah, and that was the first mocap shoot that we had, and she was like, don't you think I should just jump and straddle you? And I was like, yes. Yes, I think you should. But in all seriousness, that was one of the reasons that she was cast. She was the kind of person who was going to be gung-ho on a mocap set, and I knew that was going to work. I had an inkling, because I'm incredibly intuitive, that in the casting process, she was going to be like that, because she was so much fun in that audition.
But Ziggy has an extra talent, which we're gonna show you. Are you ready, Ziggs? You ready? You ready?
Make it stop! People are gonna call the fire department on us.
That was amazing.
Writing, we write as we go, and so it's so much easier to write when I can hear your voices in my head, you know, and I know how you're going to react to something, and it's great to be able to know I can take something in there and think, this isn't quite there yet, but I know when we just go out and put it up on its feet, it's going to suddenly come to life because you guys know the character so well.
Yeah,
Well, no,
she's an incredible writer. and prefaces everything with, now this is probably terrible, and we should please rewrite it. And it's always brilliant, and it's complex.
How many pages did you write for this game?
I was pretty shocked when I put it all together in one folder. It was this thick. It was, I don't even know. I mean, it's literally just the rendered in the game engine cinematics is an hour and a half, over an hour and a half. So we basically made a feature film and a game.
It's a feature.
But Amy also had to explain to me one day that because each player's experience of the game is different, the way that we do these cinematic scenes has to give enough information to each player so that they can be reminded of information they may have heard 6 months before, 2 days before.
Right, you never know.
So it's a very interesting way of disseminating information. So it's technically a really interesting way to tell a story. It's not only non-linear, the way we're having to perform it, but it's also having to sort of be subtle and yet not too...
Yeah, there's there's no perfect answer to that, because unlike any other medium, I mean, in a film, you expect somebody to sit down and watch it and spend the 2 hours. Somebody may play a game, say the game lasts 10, 12 hours, they may sit and do it in one sitting, which is awesome, because then they experience it in one flow, or they may play it over a number of weeks, in which case some hint that we subtly dropped in the first scene is not going to be resonating for them when they get, halfway through the game. So trying to find that happy medium for all those players is difficult.
When it comes down to doing the work, we're seasoned professionals and we all rise to the occasion. But in between, I mean, what an amazing, fun job this is. And we spend 50% of the day laughing our asses off, just having a great time. It's just,
but just talking about how almost I had to remind myself to kind of just knock it off a bit, like not be so like.
I agree with that.
Because you don't want to make it too campy or too funny, and you have to be serious about it, but yet going towards the funny side is what makes it so attainable for everyone to play.
In serious situations, humor is what keeps human beings alive. So that's it's so important. It's not real otherwise. If everybody's just really serious all the time.
I'm sorry, do you have a plan to go along with that grenade?
Yes, I do.
For me, the Drake character is so interesting because it wasn't the rugged, the romance novel hero who he falls and you hear, I'm okay, that kind of thing. It was like, damn it, that hurt. Well, I guess I'm not going that way.
And that's a decision you guys have made from the beginning, which is, what kind of universe is this? Is it a universe where there's real pain? You hit someone, it hurts. If you don't make that choice and there's no consequences, then the audience isn't going to get invested in the characters because there's no stakes. Nothing's going to happen to them, then who cares?
But in terms of the humor, because of our camaraderie, and I mean, I'm the biggest goof here, I know that, but there are times... Yeah. Thank you. But I think you're right. I mean, sometimes, especially in the ADR, and if we just layer this thing with quip after quip after quip, it's going to become really old fast. Yeah. It's like, all right, wise ass, keep moving.
It's situational humor. It's between the characters. That's what works the best, as opposed to jokes. Yeah.
And it comes out of the relationship with the characters have with each other.
And it can be something as simple as Richard adding in a god damn it,
Sully, kick her out and shut the door. We're safer in here.
Just wait a goddamn minute. Hear her out.
Because it's become this signature line that Sullivan does, but that was something that he brought, that he's not necessarily using that to be funny, but the humor came out of the characters that, we embodied, and then it just, through the rehearsals and the actual working on the stage together, it just kind of, the humor...
It's a huge part of the casting.
It became natural, you know what I mean?
That everybody that we were hiring...
But I'm not used to that. I'm used to the environment where everyone storms off to their trailer and, there's big fights everywhere. And in this environment, I've kind of got two personalities now on a set. I've got the one where I'm working on Uncharted, where I'm actually having fun. And then there's the personality I have to have where everyone's being very serious.
Chloe Fraser.
On this, it's walking in. You say, you think, you can be relaxed, you can have fun, you can play.
Can't do this without you, Drake.
The hell are you, Steve? How about Flynn?
Flynn always had that little element of sarcastic humor, which I really enjoyed, because he's a likable chap, Flynn. And I remember calling you a tired old sack of shit, and then we started filming. But remember that? It was like, what was your full character's name?
Victor Sullivan.
Victor Sullivan, right? So I would go, Victor, goddamn Sullivan. So we were doing callbacks to the goddamn thing too.
I hear that laugh in my sleep.
Because he's right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I enjoy playing the humor.
No. I just mean just the very end of it is you're going to make the move on the end of the line and he stops you.
So one of the things that's different about what we do is we actually have a fully fledged director on this project, which is pretty good.
We do?
We actually do. It's right there.
And not just any director.
And not just any director. But it's
Not half-fledged.
Jordan Hunt, the award-winning.
That's right, the award-winning
legendary voice director
of stage and film and television.
And he's written a book or two.
And a book or two.
Jordan, what's it like to work with me?
Let's go around and ask everyone that one question, shall we?
But the reason I think that I'm here is because Amy and I have worked together doing ADR for, how many video games did we do?
A bunch.
A bunch of video games.
Yeah, all the way back to 96.
And it was her idea that doing this form now needed a director with ADR experience and
Well,
a director with
camera experience.
Cameras,
Yeah.
4 cameras, television, and theater. And I think the biggest of those was theater.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it had to do with her desire to do something that had this reality edge, that had this humor edge, that had a basic something to say, and that's how I'm lucky enough to be here.
Well, look, I'm a firm believer that what you want is to gather people around you to interpret what you're doing. If you think that you've got it all buttoned up and that you can write it, direct it, and produce it, and your precious work is then done and dusted, you're not going to do very good work. The whole point is to bring people in that then interpret and revise and change it, and you have to have enough humility to know that it needs it, and enough confidence to know when to draw the line. I mean, that's right. I mean, that's the balancing act.
Interesting.
And I think that our medium is immature enough in a lot of ways that there's still a lot of people that, just kind of wing it, or they don't bring in people to necessarily then challenge or interpret the work. And we have enough to pay attention to on set, and we're worrying about how it's going to interact with the game, and whether we're going to get our cameras in, and whether we can deal with certain limitations in our game engine that we can't give the actors the time, nor do we have the experience to give the actors the time that you do. And in my mind, it's also just a gift to the actors to say, here's somebody who's only focused on you and what you need in your performance.
I have a question I wanted to ask you about directing this, because we've been in scenes where you're like, okay, you're coming in here, then and you're giving us those specifics we need, and Josh, for example, the animation will come and say, no, they can't come in that way because we have, and you have to switch on the fly and go, okay, well, how is that challenge of coming in, having something said, this is what we're going to do, and then someone going, no, that won't work because there's actually a cliff there, and you're like, well, you're okay, and you think on the fly quite a bit.
Well, I think that has to do a lot with the many years of 4-camera television, and you've got 15 writers and 5 producers, and everybody's got a new idea, to say nothing of the stars and the thing and the thing. And I think it was Jim Burroughs who said to me, always have an answer. And whether it's good or not, have the answer. And then when people are trying to work out your answer, you'll figure out whether it's going to work yourself or not. Yeah.
I think what's great about working with Gordon is what we call in the industry an actor's director. And that you will come on and you give us the basic movements, but you really let everybody find the scene for themselves. You're not controlling everything. You're letting us all find it, and that's what's so wonderful about this whole ensemble process that we're all involved in.
Confidence that you're not going to let us look stupid.
Yeah, because you might think that you can slip something by, or maybe get. And Gordon's eyes in the back of his head will be like, no, it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Thanks, Gordon.
You done?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I think one of your hardest jobs is just wrangling us.
Dealing with you.
Maybe me, but literally just we can be having fun and just playing, and at some point he's like, all right, and he's able to rein it in and then get the performance that he wants.
Yeah.
I've worked with you for 13 years. I've never seen you get angry. I've never seen you lose your temper.
I'm having too much fun.
I know, and that's the thing.
I'm stealing money out there and getting away with it. the end product of our working together happens to be ADR, which is defined as automatic dialogue replacement, automated dialogue replacement, automated
dialogue
The
recording.
truth is, here we are, these people in this industry, we have no idea exactly what that means. We
Can't
can
quite
call
agree
someone.
on what the term ADR, but ADR has, for anybody who really doesn't know, has to do with replacing or redoing the dialogue for scenes in a studio after the scenes have been shot, so that you can either change the performance, help the performance, change the writing, help the writing, or whatever. And it has to do with being in the recording booth almost always alone, sometimes with two of you. And we're sitting in the other booth listening and watching and fixing what needs to be fixed.
A lot of people out there don't know the technical aspects of ADRing, and what it entails is you have three beeps, and then you have an imaginary beep, which is your fourth beep, whereas the dialogue is being replaced. But then you have another technique that's called chasing. So they have this animation set up, right, where the character is jumping over things or going through a mission, and then you just sort of chase it and go along and match the actions to the voice.
And what we talked about that earlier. Holy shit. Gameplay, we do a lot of the chasing, sometimes together.
Here, I've got you. Give me your hand.
Just go. And some of the stuff comes out, no one will ever hear the stuff we do. Not because it's vulgar, but because, well, a lot of, yeah, it is vulgar, isn't it? We could do a whole nother version of this game. But for me, the ADR, you could say anything when he jumps over this thing, like, ah, groin. You know, little things, and then you never know, Amy and her sick little mind may actually put it in the game. But there was one in the first game where I saw this, and it was definitely a stuntman, do this elaborate kick. And we chased it, and that's where I said that. It's like, I will kick you to sleep. And that went in the game, and I've had more people comment on that, and it was one of those things where we made it up.
There's tons of improvisations.
The improv factor, it just makes it so much fun, and it's so freeing. While you're physically constrained, you're free to let your mind say anything.
And it's isolated normally with most voice work. So you get into a booth and they say, you're playing 3 characters today. The first one, you're 300 pounds, you're a slut, and you've got a gravelly voice like you've smoked 400 cigarettes a day. Go. And you suddenly have to create a character with that.
Right. Richard can do that.
You know.
And I have.
But I enjoy ADR when we don't have to sync anything up to lips. That's great. I mean, I have a blast with that. With the last session that we did, when we were doing all the rooftop climbing and the running, and you're climbing up the ladder, and I'm like, see your butt from down. You know, that when we're improvising, I had a blast doing that. You know, the worst thing with ADR is when you're syncing. You're trying to sync a performance, which I know that we really have that problem on this. So yeah, on film you have that problem where you're trying to put your voice into your own mouth. But the opportunity to go back and improve something is fantastic. In theatre, you don't have that opportunity. You suck one night, you sucked in front of those people. You can't go, can I just do that bit again? You know.
But doing ADR really well is a real art and skill in itself, right?
And can I say, just to add to that, one of the toughest things in doing video games is you look at a line and you have to immediately do a performance. You don't have time to go, what's the background behind this?
But sitting for the first time with Nolan in the room, I was reminded of, you know, the job of a leading man. You know, you can, you know, whether you respect someone on set or not, whether they can really sort of, you know, drive the story. Nolan's skills in the sound booth, I mean, he hits it every single time. I'd say he's pretty much, dare I say it, perfect. Everything he does, he follows the notes.
You got that, right?
Sorry.
I'd like that to be my new ringtone.
And I think, yeah, it's true though. You're impeccable, and you don't. It's a tough skill to have, because in the voice world, you have to be able to get in there, do your work in a session time, an allotted time. There's other people waiting, and get out in an industry where good enough, near enough isn't good enough. And you need people like Nolan who get hired based on word of mouth because they know he's as good as he is.
And being in the same room with him, it makes it a lot better when there's 2 of us in the room, but especially if it's the 2 of us together.
You know, there's a few games are doing that now, but this one was one of the first ones I ever worked on, where you actually put 2 people together.
Hello,
I think for me, it was the most intimidating part of the project.
Really?
Because I'm such a newbie. Coming in, having just theater training and working across from voices that it's so specific, and to know when you're in your chest or when you're in your nasal cavity, or if you're, speaking quietly, or what's going on, or being out of breath, or if you're having, like, even just the other day, we were ADRing something, and, we're doing jumps, and so it's like, ugh! And they're like, I think it's not so much a as it is a and like the first game, they were like, okay, we need a sequence where you jump, slide down wall, land on knuckles, and roll on knee. And I'm like, okay. Perfect. And you're just like, what is that?
And you may not have done that in real life yet, and they're not going to give you the opportunity to try it out in the hallway, so you've just got to imagine what you're doing.
I don't know. For me, it's the most intimidating.
It makes ADR.
It's an art. It's an art, and people don't think that it is.
And a lot of people who haven't done a lot of this seem to think that they're just reading the words, but would people who are really experienced use their whole body in that little space, in order to create.
There's certain things you can do, and I always try to get into a physical, like if I'm doing for some reason, it just helps me, and I don't know if it would help everyone, but like if I'm doing like a little wizard or something, doing that voice, I'll hunch my shoulders over and pull them in. I don't know why, it just feels like it's sniveling, and and I do things with my face. I'll make, if I'm doing like a goofy guy, I'll do that helps me get the voice out, because it's a goofy face. And
Christopher Walken.
I can't do him.
He's lying.
Well, that's interesting about ADR. A lot of people don't know that in the film industry. I have done ADR for famous actors when they're not available. Done like 5 movies as Christopher Walken.
What do you sound like?
A lot like this, Gordon. This is good. Sometimes I'm afraid of manatees because they're dirty. But Pacino, all these different characters, and people don't realize. They're like, well, what do you mean? It's for taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3 was interesting because Tony Scott he'll cut a whole nother film without the, so he doesn't have people saying the dirty words, and they're saying it, what they're saying, but it's like, you son at the beach, he cuts a whole new film. So I went in and did all of Travolta's stuff, and then he would come back and record, but then, when his son passed away, they ended up using a lot of my stuff for airplane versions.
I think the common denominator, though, to the motion capture stuff and the ADR stuff that all of us have to get over, which I'm sure we mostly have, is just this feeling of making a choice and feeling stupid, I guess. And because honestly, like, you're in a spandex suit with balls all over you, and you're just walking around like, I really have to be comfortable around all these people. And then in ADR, they want me to be imaginative and make risky choices. So kind of just getting over that initial fear. Like when they ask you to like scream and fall to your death, it's like you said, you just have to do it. There's
You just gotta commit to it.
You just have to do it. There's no choice.
That is freeing. That's it.
Yeah.
Because you don't get stuck in your mind trying to, you see a lot of method acting.
No, and that's when you're really doing good work as an actor too. When you're not in your head, and when you do commit to it, it's going to come across.
When people say, hey, I liked what you just did, and you're like, I have no idea what I just did.
I can't tell you how many times we leave the booth and you feel somewhat exhausted because you feel like you literally have been running through the jungle all day. You're like, you go back home and people are like, oh, how was work? And you're like, well, it was just, you realize, wait, I feel like what did I just do?
There was an actor who did like, you had to do, and sometimes in games you have to do the running sequence, like, the gentle run and then the full sprint. And somebody told me a story about the actor who did that sound of the person running, and they said, good cut. The guy went, and he fainted. He fainted in the booth. Hyperventilated and fainted.
Yeah.
Wasn't me. Graham McTavish, who is Lazarevich, is one of the sweetest, most fun to work with, great guys, and he's absolutely terrifying as Lazarevich.
So, this little man is Drake.
And it's one of those things where you're joking right before the camera rolls, you do your T-pose, and then all of a sudden he turns and he's mean.
So, this little man is Drake.
And as an actor and a persona, both on the screen and in that big empty studio, he comes in there and fills that space like nobody I've ever seen before.
And there's the additional
just by his
element.
presence.
You better pray that he is not bluffing. Search him.
I remember Taylor, I was sitting with Taylor and he said, oh, listen to this, do you want some headphones? I said, no, I can see it's happening. He said, no, it's Graham, you need to hear this. Yeah. And he gave me a set of spare cans and I saw one take without them, the next take. It was such a different world and such a different performance hearing what he was doing in that sort of sotto voce, that sort of low voice. It was so threatening, so menacing.
Did you carry him all the way from the temple? Shame.
I think it's funny watching you have to say Lazarevich.
I could not say it.
Not say it.
Lazarevich. I'm in rehearsals, I'm like, Lazarevich. We get out there, I'm like, Lazarevich.
Nate, this is Carl Schaefer.
How are you feeling?
I think one of my favorite scenes watching kind of the process happen was Schaefer towards the beginning when he's kind of coming across the desk with Nate and he's revealing the key.
Where did you find this?
And just because he's such a seasoned actor, I remember him saying, now, do you just want me to set it down open? Do you want me to take my time with it?
And kudos to Renee. He's done theater, he's done television, film.
Tony
He's
Award,
done,
Emmy Award, you name it.
yeah, I mean, he's done it all.
So, they have beaten you, huh?
It's easy to work on something when you're proud of what you're doing. I think we've all worked on shows or plays or something, God knows I have, that you're just not proud of what you're doing. And yeah, you know, there's a check at the end of the day and that's all well and good, but to work on something that, wow, you know, it makes all the difference in the world, at least to me.
I think you see it in the end product, right? And I think that's what people are responding to. When they say they love it, they've played it over and over again, and their families love it. And you can tell that you're all having fun.
Now, what are you going to do for Uncharted 3, Flynn's Revenge? That's kind of what I want to know.
Fortune.
It's Flynn's Revenge. Or Finding Flynn, by the way, I thought was kind of a good. Finding Flynn.
It's actually Sullivan's Folly.
Sullivan's Folly.
Or Robin Atkin Downs lives.
Oh boy.
Okay. We're done.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.